Ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So today's shiur is called "What's the Kippa all about?" Is this Mr. Abergel? You made that. It was yours.
No, I did.
Oh yeah, it was yours. Yeah, the Kaddish. Okay. So thanks to Max. What's the Kippa all about? This shiur is the Refuah Shelema for unfortunately the tragedy. So it's Meir Nisim ben Simi and Chana bat Mesoda and Chava bat Chana. They should have a Refuah Shelema.
Amen. Amen.
They wrote the Shem very, very fast. And unfortunately, the Nishmat Moshe ben Chana. We're talking about the Kippa. What's the Kippa all about? So, I'm not sure the word Kippa, where that originated from. The actual word Kippa, how we call it. Kippa means like a covering. It can be a dome, also is called a Kippa. The Ashkenazim have an interesting name for a Kippa. The Yarmulke. Yarmulke, right?
Yeah.
So that actually is
Yiddish.
It's Yiddish, but it comes from two words, and it actually is in essence the meaning of the Kippa. Yarmulke is Yareh Malka, to fear the king. Because when you have a Kippa on, you recognize there's something on top of me. There's something on top of me. Oh, there's a king, there's a Shem, he's on top of me. So the Yarmulke. So anytime you hear the word Yarmulke, so Kippa, I don't know if it has that significant explanation, but the Kippa, the Yarmulke has that explanation to it. So let's go a little bit through some of the sources as to where the origin of the Kippa is, and we'll show hopefully some of the significance. So they ask, where's the origin of the Kippa? So it says in the Torah that Yitzchak Avinu, when his wife, soon to be at the time wife Rivka, was coming back with Eliezer was bringing back Rivka to come towards Yitzchak. She sees Yitzchak praying in the field, and then she covers herself, and right. So they say from there, Yitzchak was there. He was praying in the field. So could it be that Yitzchak prayed without a kippah? It must have been he had a kippah on. So that's the source of the kippah. It's just a joke, right? So the source of a head covering in the Torah for a man, for a lady, there's a clear source actually for a head covering for a lady is because in the time when a case of sotah, when a man chas v'shalom thought that his wife was cheating, so he told his wife, "Don't ever go with that man. I don't want to see you, hiding or talking to that man." And he did and she did again with witnesses. They would take her to the Bet HaMikdash, and there was a whole procedure. And part of the procedure was, in order to get her to admit did she do it or not do it, they would vigilat rosha. They would take off her head covering. So that means that a married woman had a head covering. That's straight in the Torah. Now, how about a man with his head covering, the kippah? The only time it's mentioned in the Torah for a man wearing a head covering is actually by one of the clothing of the Kohen. A regular Kohen had 4 garments that he wore. A Kohen Gadol had 8 garments that he wore. One of the 4 garments that the Kohen wore was a turban. Was a mitznefet, tarbush. Was in Hebrew called the mitznefet, which was a turban, which was a head covering. The head covering was one of the things that the Kohen wore, and the Torah tells us lechavod ultifaret. It was a piece of clothing of honor. So the kippah, the head covering, was something of honor. That's the only time. So one could say, okay, it's only limited to a Kohen. It's only limited to maybe when he's doing service in the Bet HaMikdash. Right? There's no mitzvah in the Torah that says you must wear a kippah in the Torah. It doesn't say that. More of the sources are in the Gemara. Let's go through a few cases. Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 156b, Kuf Nun Vav Amud Bet, tells us that a person must cover their head in order to have fear of Hashem over them. And that's what we said before. That when a person has something over his head, he recognizes there's something above me. That's the fear of Hashem. The Gemara Masechet Kiddushin, Tav Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, tells us that Rav Huna, he never walked 4 amot without a kippah on. He always made sure that whenever he was walking, he had a kippah on, right? And with this, actually, the Shulchan Aruch, that's the way the Shulchan Aruch rules. in the second siman in Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim that you're not allowed you're not allowed to walk 4 amot without a kippah. Truth is, he doesn't say the word asur. He says velo yelech, one cannot go, or says a tiny bit more lenient. And the reason explained is because, again, the divine presence is over me at all times. So Rav Huna said, therefore, I have to have a reminder of this, that the divine presence, that Hashem is around me at all times, so I remind myself of this. There's a story also in the Gemara in Shabbat that we quoted that goes as follows. There's a great rabbi named Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak. So his mother, when she was pregnant of him, one of the sorcerers, or one of the astronomers rather, somehow told her, she was walking by and an astronomer saw her, gazed at the stars, came over and says, I want to let you know something. Your son, he's going to be a big thief. So I want to let you know, I can see in the stars that your son's going to be a thief. So she wanted to protect her son and make sure that he's not going to be a thief. So what she did was, from the moment he was born, says the Gemara, she put a head covering on him. She put a head covering on him, and he turned out to become a tzaddik. One time, they were sitting under a tree, and the head covering fell off. And when the head covering fell off, all of a sudden he had emotions of eating from that tree, but that tree wasn't in their orchard, and it would have been something like stealing. And there they recognized, the mother and the son, they recognized, this really was a protection. Because when you don't have it on, you were a different person in a certain way. So you see over here how sometimes from the Gemara that the Kippa gave a certain presence, it gave a certain kedusha to the person, prevented him from sin, and it changed maybe the mazel for the proper way. There's a story. The story goes that Rav Eliezer Man Shach, one of the great rabbis that passed away about 15 years ago. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of the Panovich Yeshiva, one of the biggest yeshivot, one of the most famous yeshivot in Bnei Brak in Israel. The story goes that in the nighttime in the dormitory, he would often walk around in the dorm rooms and sneak up on the guys when they were sleeping, and he would notice where their kippas were. And if, let's say, a person, and basically by seeing that, he would see, their level. If, let's say, a person, he would sleep with a big kippa, he knew that this person was a boy that wanted Hashem's presence on him at all times. If a person, let's say, before he went to sleep, took off his kippa, put it on the night shelf, said, okay, he's not so conscious of this. Or if a person's kippa fell off, right, it fell off very far away from him, so he would have a certain measuring stick. His measuring tape was noticing how far close the kippa was to the person's head. That's how he knew how good of a person, a student he was, etc. An interesting way. Similar to that Gemara, by noticing, so these magical powers of the kippa made this person to a better person, and Rav Shach noticed the level of his students through the wearing of the kippa. There's a story in the Gemara in Kiddushin that we quoted that Rav Chisda said as follows. He said like this. Rav Chisda said that I heard there's a person who's a great man, a great person in the community. I want him to visit me. Please call him. He told the shamash, tell him to come visit me. He came to come visit him, and when this person came in, he wasn't wearing a head covering. He wasn't wearing a kippah. So he says to him, why are you wearing a head covering? He says, because I'm not married. It seemed like at the time, if you weren't married, you didn't have to. So I wasn't married. So he says to him, he turned his face away, he says, go get married so I could see you next time. Basically like, go put on a kippah, right? So that was the interaction between the two. So these are a few gemarot that tell us straight out, allude to this concept of the kippah, and the importance of it, and recognizing that, number one, for us to recognize that when I wear this kippah, I remember that Hashem is above me, Hashem is around me, and it could have a positive influence on me by wearing a kippah, as we saw in the Gemara as well. But as far as straight out halacha, is it a sin if I don't wear a kippah, or not a sin? So we'll explain as follows. First of all, we already saw the Shulchan Aruch that tells us that one should not walk 4 amot without a kippah. The Rambam he mentions that a kippah is only midat chasidut. It's like an extra step. He does say that the Talmidei Chachamim would always wear kippahs, would always cover their heads. The great rabbis would always cover their heads. For the regular layman, it was an extra step. The Chidah goes with this as well. The Taz, on the other hand, one of the more recent poskim, says now things developed. There's certain mitzvot in the Torah where it kind of changes over time. For instance, one of them is a man is not allowed to wear women's clothing. A woman's not allowed to wear men's clothing. We mentioned this past week in the parasha. So that could be arbitrary to the times. If 500 years ago men wore skirts, and that's the way men dressed with whatever, right? Then that was a man's clothing. Or robes or jalabiyas, that was a man's clothing, right? But now you fast forward and let's say only women wear skirts and men wear pants. Now that's a man's clothing. That's a woman, right? So with times things change because the law is you can't wear women's clothing, you can't wear men's clothing, right? So certain times things change. One of those things, you're not allowed to go in the ways of the goyim. If goyim are doing some certain things and you now follow those ways, it could lead you into a more of a non-Jewish lifestyle, which you want to try preventing. You get involved in non-Jewish lifestyle, it can lead to intermarriage, it can lead to other things, right? Which is what?
That was
Tattoos?
Tattoos, yeah.
Tattoos is actual in the Torah. It's asur. That's straight up in the Torah. Not necessarily because it's a goyish thing or not a goyish thing. It's just straight up not allowed. But the thing where it can be more open is doing a non-Jewish thing. The Torah talks about this actually also in last week's parasha. We didn't mention it when we spoke about the Aliyot. But what happened was back in the day, in the time of Yaakov Avinu, one of the ways to serve Hashem was they would take a slab of stone and they would make it as like a place that they would bow to Hashem. And it was considered a good thing. But later on, even in the history of the Torah itself, later on, by Moshe Rabbeinu's time, it was something done by the Goyim. So Hashem bans it and says it's not allowed. And Rashi over there says, hold on a second, Yaakov Avinu did it. Why are you banning it? He says, because later on in time it became a non-Jewish thing. So we can't, two different things. This actually also was enacted, the Ashkenazim, for instance. For the most part, Ashkenazim, we see this by the Hasidim, they don't get married in synagogues. They get married outside of synagogues. Even the Lubavitch, for instance, they get married in the rain even. If it's outside, as long as they make sure it's outdoors, etc. What's the reason for this? The reason is because in their times, the non-Jews got married in churches. So that in order to separate, non-Jews get married in their churches, we can't get married in our synagogues because it's going to look like that. We want to do it fancy and nice like the non-Jews. No, we get married outdoors. Sfaradim, we didn't have that in our nations. The Muslims, I don't know where they got married or whatever, but we didn't have that type of thing, so we didn't make that type of ban. Yeah.
The Goyim used to give korbanot to their gods also. We did also.
Korbanot. Did they give the exact type of thing, like the animals, this and that?
The whole concept of actually sacrificing.
Sacrificing was, by the time of Avraham Avinu, they sacrificed people. They sacrificed their kids. That's why Avraham Avinu was so staunch against sacrificing kids. That was one of the biggest tests for Abraham. Was Abraham would go to people and say, "Are you crazy? You're killing your kid for your God? Well, you're nuts!" And then Hashem commands him to do it himself. Oh my gosh, this is against everything that I believe in, right? And that was a big test for Avraham Avinu. And then at the end we know Yitzchak was still alive, etc. So I don't know if exactly korbanot, but it seems maybe that was not enough to make it like a non-Jewish concept in order to ban that. Yeah.
One question that I have bishops, priests, cardinal, even the Pope.
They wear kippahs.
Why?
Why? That's a good question.
If it's
Because the first Pope,
just a minute, I'm not finished.
He's bald.
Charlie, just a minute. Why they have to wear kippah?
I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing: is anytime non-Jews bother you, why are you wearing a kippah? What is that thing on your head? He says, "Where's yours?" What do you mean, "Where's yours?" He says, "Your Pope wears it, so where's yours?" And they have nothing to say back. So next time someone bothers you with, "Hey, what's that thing on your head?" Whatever, you just tell them back, "Where's yours?" That's it.
The Pope believes in God, so maybe that's why.
That's why he has it on his head. I'm not sure why they wear
the
it.
first Pope was Jewish.
Oh yeah.
Peter, he was Jewish.
So maybe that's his wearing kippah.
Very,
So they follow that
He
tradition.
was the first Pope.
It's very weird. Then the Goyim have to wear kippah because of identity to the Jews and not to the Goyim.
Sorry, what was that?
So now, what I see more and more, priests, bishops, etc., wearing kippot all over the place. So if it's identity for the Jews only, why they trying to do whatever they do? They don't follow the halakha, they follow the Torah, they follow their own Bible.
Not sure what. Not sure why they wear it, and I don't know. I'm not sure why they wear it, and it's what their rules are about
I
it.
think you may be referring to cardinals.
That they all wear it.
They all
and
wear,
stuff.
they all wear a head covering as well as the pulpits.
Right.
Okay? Only cardinals.
No,
Bishops,
bishops and priests.
bishops, yeah, bishops.
And priests.
The higher,
The higher you are.
Well,
right?
yeah.
So we're all very high people. So we all wear kippah, right? So, but one thing definitely that you can tell them back is if they ever bother you about it, you put them on the spot and say, "Hey, where's yours?" They're like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, your Pope wears one, so you should wear one also." And they won't have anything to tell you back. So there's always a good way to hit back at them.
If they're Catholics.
Huh?
Only if they're Catholics.
Oh, the Christians, they don't believe in that, right? They're not.
They
So
have different divisions.
they have a
Only
different.
well, the Vatican's Catholic. So.
Right, but a lot of them, I think, is it majority Catholic or majority Christian?
They're over.
It's machloket.
They're over a million of them. So.
All a bunch of scammers.
Okay, let's keep that not for the video. All right, so the Chida says it's midat chasidut as well, like the Rambam, where it's an additional measure of piety, but not 100% halacha. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef says as follows, but based on all that we've spoken about, the Shulchan Aruch included, where he says that one should not walk 4 amot without a kippah. The way, I'm sorry, I got interpreted from the thing that I was saying before. I'll continue on that point. There are certain mitzvot, like we mentioned, that change within the times. You say a man's not allowed to wear women's clothing, a woman's not allowed to wear men's clothing. That changes with time. So one of those is you're not allowed to go in the ways of the goyim. So with time, that could be, like we said, getting married in a church, getting married in a synagogue. That's similar to like a church. The goyim, the Ashkenazim, they didn't do that. So certain things you're not allowed to do because it's like the goyim do. So one of those things, a differentiation, would be when we wear a kippah. The goyim, they used to wear hats, but they would take it off. It would show a sign of respect, and they would take it off and pray without it. So we say, hold on a second, we keep ours on. Right? We don't have to take ours off, right? Then that's like the goyim. So we keep something. We have to differentiate ourselves between ourselves and the goyim. When we differentiate ourselves, then that's what we're. There are certain differentiations that we have to try making. So I'm Jewish. I'm a little bit different, right? So that's one of the concepts as well of the kippah, and not to fall into the going in the non-Jewish ways by taking off a kippah. So according to the Taz, it's a biblical law of if one doesn't wear a kippah, then it's like a biblical law of doing the non-Jewish way by not wearing a kippah.
So the goyim always did the first step, in a way that we had to change.
Why?
So all of a sudden, all the goyim decides to wear kippah.
To wear kippahs.
Then what? We change?
On this point, I don't know if that'll happen.
Just
but
an
there are
example,
certain
but-
things. There are certain things when it's not Torah law or whatever. Then maybe.
Didn't Jews used to wash their feet before entering the Beit HaMikdash?
Beit HaMikdash.
So once the Muslims started to do it, we stopped.
I don't know if it was it's not because of that. We just don't have a Beit HaMikdash anymore.
No,
But
during that time, I guess, right?
no, during that time we still Muslims anyways didn't come around till much later.
700s,
Yeah, but they didn't come around till much later, and yes, but we just stopped because of the lack of Beit HaMikdash. That's a good question, Shlomo. You're right. I mean, if things would propel later on, like if let's say they all started wearing, white shirts, they all started dressing like a yeshiva guys.
Jews for Jesus. I'll be honest with you, they look like Jews.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
see,
that-
I'm not
that's
saying,
the
if you
common
just
view.
look at them, they look like Jews.
Yeah, but that's
Tzitzit,
good.
Inyanim, the whole thing. So,
Yeah, but that's a very few. But let's say like
now
everybody.
it's a very few. Christianity was a very few also at one point.
Right, but the truth is, like, so I'm going to get to your question, but like, for instance, the Hasidim, they have different, so they wear long socks, and they wear different hats, etc. Back in the fur hats, back in the day, like in Europe, like you wore, like in Morocco, you wear a jalabia, The Goyim also wore jalabiyas. In Europe, the way you dressed, the Goyim dressed similar. It was the style, whatever it was. But they always did differences for the Goyim and the Jews. The Jews did differences. So the Goyim also used to wear certain hats or fur hats, and they would wear taller ones or shorter ones, or with a different ribbon, or different socks pulled up. Look, I'm Jewish. I'm different. Right? The Jews always made those distinct differences. So if things would pop up where all of a sudden all Goyim would wear, white shirts and like this, I'm sure we'd change our uniform to be the Jewish uniform. Yeah, doctor.
Just an answer to this question. You were saying that the Jews for Jesus are wearing the tzitzit and the thing. I'll tell you something. They do that purposely to look like the Jews in order to attract Jewish children, Jewish people.
Right.
And so, when you see somebody with a tzitzit and a kippa, you think to yourself, my God, this is a Jew. By the time you figure out that there is a difference between them and there, you've already been sucked into their...
Although a few of them are Jewish too, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Rabbi, is there a difference in stringency wearing kippah indoors or outdoors? Because I understand a lot of it has to do with, in sort of between you and Shemayim, sort of,
Right,
that outdoors
right.
is more important to cover your head.
Right. I don't think there's a difference between indoor and outdoor, and the only difference would be in the earlier stages of halacha, if you have to wear one at all or not. I mean, not if you have to wear one at all or not. The stringencies is it chayav, or is it a minhag, or is it a midah chasidut? But once you've established that, I don't think there's a difference if indoor and outdoor. I didn't see a difference between the two. So according to this is one of the reasons as well, as we see, is to differentiate between ourselves and goyim. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, with this in mind, takes it to the next level, and he says as follows. And now he's contemporary Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. He says that the way things spurred is that a Jew is identified with a kippah. An observant Jew, a Jew that connects himself to Judaism, is someone that wears a kippah. Therefore, if you want to wear that uniform, if you want to connect to observant Jews, you want to connect to a Torah Jew, you want to, then you have to wear a kippah. And it's through that, it's basically through many poskim, basically halacha, because it's such a strong minhag that identifies us as a Jew. It's basically turned into halacha. That's what Rabbi Ovadia Yosef says, and it puts you in the camp of a Jew. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. But it's, if you want to show your affiliation with the Jewish community, right? Then it's by wearing the kippah. And the truth is, I saw an interesting twist on things. We think like the status quo, like nowadays wearing a kippah is you're identified as a Jew. So as follows, we think the status quo is a person doesn't have a kippah, and we have to justify why to wear a kippah. But on the other hand, if let's say one doesn't wear a kippah, maybe that's making a statement that you're not pro-Jewish, you're not pro-Israel, you're not, you don't identify yourself as a Jew, or so by wearing the kippah, right? We always talk about being pro-Israel, pro-Jewish, and this is who I am, and I don't care, right? So when you put on that kippah, you're making that statement. Any guy that you see in the street wearing that kippah, you have to tell him Chazak u'Baruch, because he's pro-Israel, he's pro-Jewish, and he's standing up for the Jewish nation, right? So maybe that's the status quo. Because the other one, maybe you're copping out, you're hiding behind something, and you want to look like a goy on the outside, right? So that could be another reason adding to, especially nowadays, where that's the perception. You see the kippah, he's connected to that camp. Talk about halacha, just an additional point. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef talks about the size of the kippah, that it should be big enough that you could see it from all four sides when someone looks at you from all four angles. that you be able to see the kippah.
See tons of kids today in Israel, they wear like kippot like that.
Right. Yeah.
No, but like,
Yeah. That's the thing, right? So then, how small can you go? Can I go to like?
my daughter, when she came from Israel, she thought she was bringing something cool.
She rather keep it like.
She paid a fortune for that.
Oh, right.
Like, we looked at her.
Yeah.
She said everybody wears them in Israel.
Everybody wears these sort of things.
Does that
yeah,
count?
so-
Why the reformist Jew don't wear kippah?
No, that's a good
Don't
thing.
start with
That's
them.
a good question.
The reform.
Why don't they do a lot of things, right? Better that they do other things. If they'll keep kosher or keep Shabbat, I'll let them not wear kippahs. Or let them do all the other stuff. I don't know.
But
That's,
doesn't matter the size. I mean,
Besides, so that's what they say.
the
Like,
color, I mean, you know.
yeah.
like,
So
there's some
so that's a good
funky
point.
colors.
I don't want to get into the differences of like color and suede versus knitted and this. So look, in Israel, it might make political differences of what kippah you're wearing, but you know, it's in Chutz La'aretz here. It's just whatever. You know, it doesn't really make such a difference what kippah you're wearing. You know what I mean? You're wearing a kippah, you say Chazak U'Baruch to the person. You know, in Israel, it lines you up in that thing. It doesn't mean that now you hate the other one or whatever it is, but it makes yourself associated. Just when a person wears a uniform for the Navy, in Israel they wear the beige one, or they wear the green one. That's for the other, right? So you're identifying yourself with this. So a person identifies himself if he's Mizrahi, more Tzioni, whatever. They wear that type of kippah. He's more Haredi, more in the yeshiva style. They wear the yeshiva type of kippah. So it kind of identifies you. Doesn't mean that they're at war with each other, things like that. We hope not, and no. But especially in Chutz La'aretz, a kippah doesn't. You're wearing a kippah, you say, Chazak U'Baruch to the Jew. It's good to see a fellow Jew, a fellow brother that wears a kippah, that identifies as a Jew. Now, the differentiation between Paul.
I got a hell once wearing different color of kippah.
What happened?
Yeah, he said you have to wear black kippah.
Black kippah? I don't know. I didn't tell you that.
So it doesn't matter what color you
Doesn't
wear?
matter what color.
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what color.
Of the size, large, small.
Size. So yes, I'm just saying. Look, the best is if you could see it from all four sides, right? But look, normal kippahs basically be in the norm, right? I mean, be in the norm, normal size and things like that. Again, if you go small, how small, right? So I could have a kippah this big or this big, or right? So yeah. There was once a person who was becoming more observant, and he was struggling with, should I wear a kippah, should I not wear a kippah, should I wear a kippah? He was a pilot in the Israeli Air Force, and he once had a mission to go to Turkey, so when times were a little bit better, and he landed in Turkey, and he dropped off some people there, and he was kind of waiting around, and he saw a Turkish pilot, and they were talking. He said, "You're Jewish, you're from Israel." Yeah, they were talking, and this Turkish pilot, was fluent in certain Jewish writings, talking about the Kuzari, talking about different things that he read. He says, "So hold on a second. If you're Jewish, where's your kippah?" And now you put him on the spot, right? He says, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then, it hit home. He says, "Look, if this non-Jew is telling me about my kippah, that awoke him. That awoke him. And that again is the differentiation between the goyim in order to differentiate us. And the goyim was the one that woke him up to that, right? Also, there's a Hasidic rabbi that lives in Los Angeles. That he's Hasidic, and his kids wear the Hasidic garbs. They wear the vest, and they wear like a one button tied up here, and they wear the socks and all that stuff. So he told me, I call this the Shmone Begadim, like the 8 clothings that the Kohen Gadol would wear. So too, I dress my kids in this way because it's that separation. So Hasidim, you might call it too separated, but it's to separate between the Goyim and the non-Jews, right? Because, and then that's what we're talking about soon, is when a person wears a kippah, there's also that responsibility. If you're driving, you're likely not going to have as much road rage because you represent someone. You represent Hashem, you represent the Jewish nation. If you're standing in line at a supermarket and the teller tells something to you, you're not going to scream at her as easily, or it's going to hold you back. So, I got this kippah on, I should keep my cool on this. What you going to think of the Jewish nation? What you going to think of Israel? She's going to say anti-Semitic comments, this and that. So it puts you in check. But if you don't have a kippah, if you don't have anything, then you're kind of like one of the goyim, then you could do things that maybe you won't want to do, and you won't be kept in check. So the kippah does a lot And this Hasidic rabbi was saying, the more I add to myself and my kids wearing this hat, or wearing this vest, or wearing this, then the more I'm in control of myself, and the more I want to be in that zone, I want to be in that proper, the way that I act, the Jew should act, so that clothing protects and adds more elements to this, the way that the Jew should act. So that's a very important point with the kippah as well. So we've seen that it instills Yirat Shamayim. We saw the magical powers that were brought down in the Gemara, that through the kippah, literally the kid, his mazal transformed and became a better kid because of the zechut of the kippah. Differentiation between goyim and Jews. The poskim also bring down that it's a kiddush Hashem. When you're wearing a kippah and you're acting properly, etc., people say, "Wow, this is a Jew." And like we said, it makes you become a better person because you're wearing that kippah, because you're not going to act foolishly, etc., because we're watched all the time. Oh, look at that Jew, what he did, etc. So now if you act good, wow, chazak u'baruch, what a kiddush Hashem, unbelievable that what this Jew did, etc. You know, there's a famous story that someone's car once broke down, and someone was driving, and he noticed, a Jewish guy, the kippah there, he needs some help. He goes to him, and he helps him out with his car, and he helps him fix his flat tire, whatever it was. And the guy tells him, "Thank you so much for helping me. I really appreciate it." And he starts taking off the kippah. The owner of the car starts taking off the kippah, and he puts it back into the glove compartment. So he says, "So, why did you just the guy looked at him confused, like, what are you doing?" He said, the guy driving the car, whose car broke down, he said, "I'll tell you the truth, I'm not Jewish, but my friends told me, always keep this kippah in your car. You put it on, and someone's going to stop for you and help you out." Right?
Or stop and shoot you.
I don't know. But it's a known thing. You see that when you have the kippah, it's there's something else. The fellow Jews see you, and it's a good sign. There was a story that goes as follows. There was a university student who was adamant to always wear his kippah. And he was in NYU or in one of the universities in the New York area. He always wore his kippah and didn't care what. He was in a school where he was one of the only Jews, and he always wore his kippah. Now, what happened was he was going to become a lawyer, and he sent out his resume, and he got an interview to one of the best law firms in Manhattan. But his teacher told him, "I'll tell you the truth, look, I really don't think you should wear the kippah for this." He's like, "Look, there's a top law firm, you don't want to mess things up, or whatever." So he was really deliberating, what should I do? Should I go with the kippah? Should I not go? Should I go with the kippah? Should I not go? He decided not to go with the kippah. He said he walked into the office with the person that he was meeting, his head lawyer that was interviewing him. Right when he walked to the office, he notices a beard, a big kippah, peot, under the kippah, one of those Hasidic guys. And the first thing the guy told him, "Where's your kippah?" So the guy was shocked. He said, "My kippah, what do you..." He says, "Look, I took it off because this is a big law firm. I didn't want..." He said, "I'm sorry, you're not getting the job." He said, "We didn't even talk. Look what's going on." He said, "The only reason why we gave you this interview was because we heard that you were the only Jew for 4 years of law school that wore a kippah and was adamant about wearing his kippah. And we knew, therefore, if you're a stubborn guy and you're a strong guy like this, you could work hard and you could do it and you could be strong. But we see that you falter when push comes to shove, you don't have it in you. I'm sorry, this job's not for you." And the guy went on saying that since then, number one, he never took off his kippah. And number two, he didn't get the job. He didn't get the job because they were really stubborn about it, but it woke him up. He said sometimes we think by taking off the kippah it's going to help more, but putting on the kippah will also have that zechut. We mentioned earlier that the kippah associates us. It's like a uniform. It associates us with Jews, the way it's supposed to act. That person said a story once where he witnessed a non-Jewish man who was drunk and he was acting like a fool on the streets. And he found a kippah on the floor. It was a Jewish neighborhood, maybe kids, whatever it was. And this drunk guy put a kippah on. He thought it was funny, and he was acting drunk and acting foolish with a kippah on. And this person that saw this, he couldn't interfere because he feared for his life or whatever it was. He feared for getting, this guy was drunk. But he felt so bad this person's taking our symbol, our kippah, and he's acting like a fool. Is it this guy's a drunk and he thinks it's funny, etc. Right? It makes us feel like bad when one would imagine to see something like this, because this is our symbol of Hashem. This is our symbol of a person acting in the proper way, right? So seeing that caused them pain. That you're doing something that associates with observant Jews, with Torah Jews, with Jews that want to connect to Hashem, and you're using it in the wrong way. So that kippah has that effect. By wearing it, has that effect that, you know what, you're part of this nation. And now you're on a higher standard. Now people look at you. Now you have to act better. So without the halachic things, there are so many things that you say, you know what, I want to be part of this. I want to wear this to get those extra benefits. It makes you a proud Jew. It makes you, say that, I'm a proud Jew. Again, that person that you see that wears that kippah, you should applaud him because he is pro-Israel, he's pro-Jewish, he's doing all these things that we always talk about. He's actually showing it when he wears his kippah loud and proud. And we shouldn't, we say, lo yavosh, v'lo yikalem, v'lo yikasher, we ask Hashem not to be embarrassed for us observing Judaism. And look around, right? That there's, Max told me a story recently where someone was having, thinking, should I wear a kippah in public, should I not? And he had a ticket to pay, and he gets to the courthouse, and the judge was one of those guys that wear the turbans, and he wore like a monster turban. It was one of those huge ones. And he said to himself, if this guy could go around and he's not embarrassed, why am I embarrassed about my little thing on my head? And he started wearing it from then on. Yeah.
So you touched on all the symbolic and sort of spiritual reasons wear a kippah, but at the end of the day, it's a head covering.
Right.
So the nafkamina is what about baseball caps?
Baseball caps.
What about hats? What about, all these other head coverings? Do they serve the same purpose? I know they don't make you look different. But on the other hand, you might feel safer walking the streets of a tough neighborhood.
Right.
Or, a Muslim neighborhood or something with a baseball cap rather than a kippah. So does a hat serve a similar purpose? I know you wouldn't wear it in shul, but... Right.
So you bring up a good point. You're right. It doesn't serve all those other purposes from the outside. But the one thing that which is maybe the most important, is that you're wearing a kippah or you're wearing a baseball cap, you're wearing a head covering because hopefully, that Hashem is above me and I have to act in a certain way. So that's all these things at the end. The best is that we get it down to ourselves. The kippah or any type of these things. The simanim, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, or anything that we do, we have to try integrating into our self, becoming a better person, etc. So, yes, the kippah makes us, on the outside, people look at us and this and that, right? So, yeah, when you're wearing a baseball cap, no one's going to recognize that you are, a Jew, and therefore you're going to act better. Yeah, when you're at the teller, you're probably not going to act, you're going to act your regular self, not like a person wearing a kippah if you're wearing a baseball cap. But when you wear that cap, you recognize, I'm doing this because there's God here, and He's on top of me. And so it's not the full effect, but I think there is a strong effect there. And the strong effect that affects yourself, I think, is the strongest.
I have a quick question, because my cousin told me once she lives in New York, and she saw a Syrian one day just pull out a kippah from his pocket, put it on, say the bracha, and then put it back in his pocket. And what I understand, in Syria, they weren't allowed to wear kippahs at a certain point. They didn't allow any sort of religious thing, so they had to sort of adapt that. Maybe that became a part of their custom. But my question is about the brachot. Is there a relationship between saying prayer and having the head covering? Because so far we haven't kind of connected the two.
So good point. So the Chachamim do say from that pasuk that talks about the Kohanim wearing it in the Bet HaMikdash, there are those that say I didn't bring that. The Rambam specifically says by prayer as well. The pious would read it, and Hilchot Tefillah, Perek Chamesh, Halacha Hey, Perek Hey, Halacha Hey, the Rambam says only Chayav during Tefillah. So during Tefillah, so therefore outside of Tefillah, according to the Rambam, you don't have to. But during tefillah, 100%. So anytime you make a bracha, yeah. So yes, and there's also there's correlations to food as well. Not because you're making a bracha. So yes, some people would say a bracha, take it off, and do it like that. So there is something to that with tefillah and in times of prayer, etc. Yeah.
Continuing the question of Dr. Shaheen, so let's say I'm walking with a kippah, and as he says, all of a sudden I hit the neighborhood of Muslims. Now,
just put on a cap.
And I don't have a cap. So should I go with the kippah on and
Yeah, so
most
if,
likely they can beat me up?
no, so in that case you don't. You have to take care of yourself, and you have to v'chai bahem. You have to look at your.
Good beating anyway.
They might respect you if you want to keep on.
Yeah,
Well, on top of that, they respect it.
maybe some of the respect, but if you're really going to go in a neighborhood like that, etc., right? But if you remember, we went to Morocco in May. At the beginning of the trip, a lot of us were wearing caps, etc. But they knew we were Jewish, right? But we were wearing caps still, etc. But then you felt comfortable. And later in the trip, I myself was walking the shul with a kippah on, just a kippah. Now walking without bodyguards, because a lot of times we had security, but there's sometimes on the morning when we decided to go on our own to tefillah, me and a few guys carrying our tefillin bag in the streets of Casablanca with the kippah on, and we felt comfortable, right? So were we doing something stupid? Maybe, but you know what? We felt comfortable at the time to do that, right? But yes, if you're walking to a dangerous neighborhood and you're really feeling for yourself, take off the kippah. If you have no other option, then take off the kippah because you don't want to put yourself in harm. That's much stronger than a minhag or a strong thing to do by wearing the kippah, etc.
Is there an issue with the kippah having all those, advertising kibyafol of
like raptors or this?
I mean, I don't know.
Look, yeah. So look, it is better not to have that, right? Keep us to remind us of Hashem, etc. And this is like, it's like "In God We Trust" is written on the money. That means they trust the money, right? It's not they don't trust the money, right? So if I put the raptors as my God, right? So then the raptors is the God. But if you're dealing with teenagers and this, where you're happy that they're just wearing a kippah, I don't care what you wear on your head, just put that thing on. Yeah, you want the raptors, you want the leaves, you want whatever you want. So, but adults that have this, if they come in, they're already at the level. So you know what? Maybe wear it on Purim, not regular week. Okay.
When you work in a bank in Israel for 20 years, after 20 years you wear a kippah, when you walk back to the bank, and everybody was looking at him. So 20 years working here, and all of a sudden he's wearing the kippah. So everybody said, "Oh, the hadishtageh."
So that's probably the hardest thing. Probably is when you are wearing. You've been in an environment without wearing a kippah, and now you've transformed to in that same environment. Now you started wearing a kippah. A person works for 20 years in a place, no kippah. You became religious and this and that, but now you decided you want to take that step. That's probably the hardest thing. That there's a statement I saw where when a person starts wearing his kippah for the first time in that environment, there's different reactions. People could say good things, people say not good things. Someone said that the biggest reaction he got was a subtle reaction without no talking at all. And for 5 minutes, when he was talking to someone for the first time after wearing his kippah, he saw his eyes like this the whole time. 5 minutes, talking to his face, looking at his kippah. Yeah, how are you? Yeah, things are good. Yeah, every 5 seconds. So he felt it, right? So that's going to be the hardest thing to overcome. It's difficult. We're not saying no. And I'm sure, though, over time, people that will respect you, and the people, chas v'shalom, not, they won't. But there's a story that there was a person that lived in Vancouver. Now, this could be also on the flip side. When a person becomes a little bit more religious, and they're still not wearing a kippah, it could also work to your detriment. A person was living in Vancouver, and he got to that religious point where he started keeping Shabbat, he started keeping kosher, but he wasn't at the level yet to wear a kippah at work. So he got a new job. He wasn't at the level yet of wearing a kippah. And what happens is that when you now decide to ask for Shabbats off, etc., they don't believe you. Like, you're Orthodox, but where's your kippah? Or whatever. So there's a kind of a conflict there. Or let's say they do business lunches, and you say, well, I'm kosher. Why are we going to the seafood place? Kosher. Like, you don't apparently look different than I do. So it's very hard for them to buy that, right? And then when they take you to that restaurant, you have to order a salad, order this, maybe compromise on your kashrut level. But once you have that kippah on, they know, like, hold on a second, this guy's different. Oh, I respect. Oh, you can't even eat salad? Okay, I respect that, or whatever it is, right? So sometimes when you put that kippah on, it helps you out so much more. The same guy eventually moved to Toronto. The story goes is that he decided, you know what, I want to turn on a new city. I'm wearing my kippah. And he got a job, I think he's also at a law firm. And he walks to the elevator. He was in an interview for a law firm, and he's in the elevator, and there's a bunch of people in the elevator, and he's happy to see a guy in the corner there with a kippa also. He's like, oh wow, nice, whatever. And as they're going up the floors, more people are exiting, and it's just him and this guy with the kippa left. And they start talking. And he's like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to work at whatever, such and such a law firm. He said, really, I work there also. Wow. He's like, I'll tell you the truth though. He's like, they don't like, even though I wear my kippa, here I've got so much confidence, they don't like people wearing kippas here, whatever, right? So this guy all of a sudden is like, oh my gosh, my first time wearing a kippa, whatever, I can't believe it. He's like, should I take it off? Should I keep it on? Should I take it off? Keep it on? He wasn't sure. He's like, let me just leave it on, right? He goes into the meeting, to the interview. Lo and behold, it was that guy in the elevator that interviewed him, right? So he wanted to also see what's this guy all about, right? He was maybe playing a joke on him or whatever it was, right? But it was the guy in the elevator that also interviewed him, right? So sometimes those things happen. And again, if you're not wearing the kippah and you're at that religious level, right, then it could work to your detriment. Yeah.
It's another fantastic thing that happens when you're in non-Jewish areas with a kippah on, is that hidden Jews come out of the woodwork.
Chazak Baruch, yeah.
People come. I personally met people who later became very good friends of ours because I was in Scarborough, at a government office paying a bill, and people who were from another part of the world who were lost, didn't know where the Jewish neighborhood was. They ended up in Scarborough.
Wow.
And they saw a kippah, and the 6 people right up to me, when is Shabbat? Where can we buy Shabbat?
Right.
People come out of the woodwork.
Oh, yeah.
I had kids with tattoos, like supermarket workers, with tattoos and earrings, start talking to me about Judaism because of the kippah.
Wow.
So it's really, you're selling yourself, you're advertising yourself when you walk around with a kippah. I think it's a great topic because there's nothing more
outwardly Jewish, right?
Being Jewish than a kippah.
There's a story that I'm going to mention now. I might have mentioned this before, but tell me if I've already mentioned to you. And then I'll end off with another story. I was once in my father-in-law's synagogue in Los Angeles. I exited the synagogue. I was waiting for my brother-in-law to drive me home. And I'm standing there. I was resting against like a pole or something like that. And I was dressed, the kippah with my hat and my jacket and everything. And I hear behind me, a guy tells me, Mani Shmachi, what's going on? If that would have happened, this is also one of the things with the kippah, Israel, how it, and the diaspora, how it's an important thing. If that would have happened in Israel, this story, 99% chance, I would assume, that he would probably walk by me and found someone that looks like him to ask him where the laundromat is. But what happens in the diaspora? He sees a guy with a black hat, that's his brother, that's the closest to him as opposed to somebody else, a Chinese guy or whatever, right? So that's my brother. So in the diaspora, what happens is when we have our kippahs, we connect to Jews no matter what stripe, because we have to always insulate ourselves and connect, because we want to, unless we don't want to, and then we'll fall to the wayside. Whereas in Israel, one of the small detriments is that when you're living in Israel, the assumption is, okay, my kid's going to marry Jews anyways, and everyone's Jewish here anyways. So I don't have to connect specifically to a synagogue or specifically to people that are religious or whatever, because my kid's going to marry Jews and everything's going to be okay, right? Whereas here, you want that connection, you want that strong connection. The kippah could help facilitate that. One story, a crazy story, it shows the power of the kippah as well. This story, I know the people that this happened to. The country of Venezuela is a dangerous country. And the story goes that there was a Jewish guy driving a nice car in Caracas, when a few people, at a red light, ganged up on him around the car, told him to get out of the car. They stole the car from him and they put him in the trunk of their van. The way it works, unfortunately, is that they would take Jewish kids, ransom them, and hopefully get a lot of money for it. What happened was they took this Jewish guy and they brought him to a warehouse, and he was there for 2-3 days, and they were asking for ransoms through the different ways that they do it, and nothing was coming in, and time was getting short, and they didn't know what to do with this person. So there was two guys involved, and this religious guy, we'll call him Joe. So there's a religious guy, this Jewish guy, These two other guys, Carlos and Manny. Carlos tells Manny, you know what, the police are coming after us. We're gonna, we're not getting any money out of this thing. Let's just get rid of him. Let's just kill him. And Manny says, you know what? So Carlos gives Manny the gun. He's like, finish him off. So Manny's like, you do it. And they're fighting between like, who's gonna kill him? No, you do it. No, you do it. So Manny tells Carlos, why don't you want to do it? Why are you passing it to me? He's like, I'll tell you the truth. He's like, this guy's wearing that thing on his head. The guy was wearing a kippah. I'm afraid of his God. So Manny tells Carlos, I'll tell you the truth also. I also don't want to kill him because I'm also afraid. He says, okay, so let's take him. So what they decided on doing, now this guy's hearing everything. He's blindfolded and he's hooked up and everything, right? He's handcuffed, but he's hearing everything. And he understands Spanish, etc. He's from Venezuela. And they decide to take him back into the truck. They drive to a very dangerous area, and they just throw him on the street. And then supposedly when he was thrown on the street, people were screaming "carne fresca," right? Fresh meat, like kill the guy, raid the guy, steal from the guy, beat him up. And this guy just started running. And there's an old lady there in this little co-op or this area. The old lady there, she saw what was going on. She called him into his house. Please come into my house. And this old lady basically took care of this young Jewish guy, called the police, etc. And they rescued him from this home, and everything was safe again. That family doesn't live in Venezuela anymore. They moved to Miami. But one of the points of the story is literally this person got saved by the kippah. Where sometimes we think we wear the kippah, it causes negative to us. We've seen a few ma'asim that we've seen that it gives us the positive. And for this person, literally gave him life. Bezrat Hashem, some of us we're at the level of wearing kippah all the time. Some of us we wear it once in a while. Some of us we wear it not as often, right? Hopefully through this we recognize the beauty of and the importance. And recognizing that when we wear a kippah, we're making a statement, and a positive statement, a statement that we all talk about. Proud to be Jewish, proud to be pro-Israel, proud to show who I am, right? So if we could take these messages and the kedusha of the kippah, recognizing that Hashem, that's the main thing, recognizing that Hashem is above me, and when I recognize that, then it makes me act as a better person, etc. If we take that message and hopefully increase our kippah wearing even a little bit, right? Then Hashem will give us much beracha in our lives, and when we recognize, Hashem is above me, and He wants me to connect to Him, He wants me to act in this proper way, then Hashem will reciprocate and give us all the berachot. Bezrat Hashem, we're approaching Rosh Hashanah, we always want to try finding something to do, right? So sometimes even when we're in our own home, we're not yet ready to go out to the public, even just to go to the store, it's hard for me, right? But it means something to be in our own home. What does it hurt? It's between you and your wife. What, she's going to make fun of you? You make fun of her back. Whatever, right? So you put on the kippah. What does it hurt? For a few minutes, a few hours, you're in your own home, right? Someone could start like that. You receive the kedusha of the kippah. You receive the kedusha of the garments of the kohanim. And with that, soon we'll see the kohanim, the Bet HaMikdash, b'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Before we say Rabbi Hananiah, let's choose the next topic.